All right, listeners, thank you for listening. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for seeing an uptick in my analytics of lately. So I appreciate all of that. I'm going to kick off the episode with a little self promo. Don't forget to check out in the show notes the links from my link tree, which has my mentorship program, Growthish. Also have a new and a finalized kind of merch store, which I have some t-shirts on there that are quite different than anything else that anybody be wearing. I don't really like to wear things like everybody else does, much like my weirdness. So if you're into that as well, certainly check that out. There may be some motivational t-shirts or some things you like on there. I think some of them are pretty cool, pretty clever. I also have my book that's out on Amazon, which is Gamers, the Unexpected Overachievers. Go ahead and check that out. That is also in the link tree. And obviously, listening to the podcast, I thank you very much for that. And checking me out on LinkedIn for most of my content where I spend a lot of my time. So I appreciate you listening. Let's get into the show. All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Drew Mousetis on, Executive Director, Tandem Center for Shared Business Success. So Drew, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Brandon. It's a privilege and an honor to be here, truly.
You stop it. It's not that. It's just a show.
Oh, I mean it.
Well, thank you for that. So I want to kick off. We actually had a little bit of a conversation last week and around the questioning. So I want to hit more with kind of a deeper cut. So you are celebrating 16 years of sobriety. And how has that journey influenced your leadership style and the way you advocate for others?
Well, I'm coming up on 13 years, so 12 years.
Okay, my bad.
It's all good. So, yeah, I mean, if you looked at my life before sobriety and look at it after sobriety, it's nothing short of miraculous, like the change that's occurred. And, a lot of the life before was self-imposed. It was bad decisions. It was doing things that led me into a life of, uh, addiction and alcoholism and led me into some really dark places and tough times. And then, I surrendered my life to God and became willing to serve Him and serve others with what was left of my life. And that transformation really is kind of the engine which drives my life from that point forward. So I would say, I have a solid foundation. And when I'm faced with challenges with teammates or in business or at work, there's a perspective of, it's not like we're solving for world hunger or world peace here. There are some major issues that people deal with around the world and that people are struggling with. And we get to show up every day and work together and try to do good work and pursue excellence and do the best that we can. But the stakes aren't life or death. And so I think that perspective means a lot. With that, I'm able to approach things with just a caring attitude. So just genuinely caring about all teammates, all customers. And beyond that, one of my life's missions is to help others achieve the same life-changing opportunity that I had to get sober. And so I continue to do that today through recovery, right? And helping people who are stuck in that lifestyle crawl out of it and experience life the way that I'm able to experience it today. There's a change management piece to that and helping other human beings that translates just across the board in all relationships, be it business, neighbors, family, community, and everywhere else. So
Can I ask you a personal question about that journey?
you can.
And this is a very vague question, but what's the hardest part of that? What was the hardest part of that process?
For me, it was just letting go and surrendering everything. There's a saying that, the only thing that you need to change is everything.
Oh, that's so deep.
And I was in and out of treatment 5 times. It was in my 5th treatment that I surrendered completely. And before that, there were always lines that I drew in the sand. And I just said, I will listen and take suggestions from the people that are in my life that care about me up to a certain point. But in this area of my life, I'm going to do what I want to do and continue to do it the way that I've always done it. And until I was willing to just kind of throw my hands up completely and just say, all of my life, take it and use it for you. and your will. I wasn't able to achieve long-term sobriety, and God works through other people for me. So there are many people that were placed in my life that helped me, guided me, mentored me, and led me to where I am today. Yeah,
That must be feel really powerful to help other people through that process since you've been through it, you've lived that. That's got to be super fulfilling from your side of the fence as well as I'm sure as well as theirs.
absolutely. Yeah, when I sit down with another person and we're doing like one-on-one work where we're working to change
Yeah.
from the inside out, and I see people throughout the years, kind of the light turn back on in their eyes, and they get jobs and employment. They become productive members of society. They're back in their family's life. They have purpose and meaning. When you see that light go on, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
It's uplifting. I have a beautiful life all around, and I could be faced with challenges and work or life, but when I sit down with another person one on one and help and walk through that process bit by bit, it always lifts me up. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to touch on something else you said there because it triggered a moment that happened today. So you mentioned about the problems that a lot of us deal with aren't, world hunger, world peace, right? So they're very big to us, but in the grand scheme of things, they may not be very, very big or very, very dire. And I think that's really important because in our book club today, we're very busy at work right now. And I am very in tune with customer schedules and deadlines and dedications and commitment and all that stuff. But we had an instance where I had a fabricator who's in our book club, right? So we meet at 7:30 Mondays and Fridays, and he almost stopped coming because we're very busy in his department and he has a deadline, and we're talking a half an hour twice a week. So 1 hour of his work is in a book club. So it takes up his production time. And he said, I almost stopped coming, and I've been wrestling with the idea of not coming to book club because we have a project I'm working on that's very important from a deadline perspective. And I'm so glad he brought it up because in that moment we were able to kind of talk through that. And it really, for me, it was, you're working for yourself at this moment. This book is to help you for personal growth. It's just going to help SWF and your customers that you work with way down the line. It's not the right now, right? It's not the half an hour we're getting right now. It's the 2026, the 2027, the 2028 that you're going to gain all this self-growth back, this efficiency, this approach to people, how you're going to help teach people and coach people because you're working on yourself at the same time. And I think it falls into right what you're saying with like step out, take a little perspective about what we're talking about, which is 1 hour a week for your personal growth versus that hour being production and welding hood down the whole time. I think it was very interesting, and I don't think I grasped the concept of not everybody sees that personal growth the same way.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. It's like we're faced with decisions all day, every day, and there's what we're really driven and really want to do, but there's what we know that maybe we ought to do that'll pay off in the long run. And if we make that decision to do what we ought to do, we benefit, and then kind of we grow as a result. And it's almost like a muscle that we can make that
Yes.
decision more often in the future. It's interesting. I mean, I'm sure you'll get into this, my executive director role at Tandem and whatnot,
Yeah.
but part of working with business owners and what we're offering, which is a form of shared success through different programs and practices, it's kind of making that decision, which could be very beneficial in the long run versus the
Yes.
short.
Yeah, it's the constant long game, right? Well, in Simon Sinek's words, the infinite game that we're playing, right? It's never about if a good business, a healthy business is one that lasts forever. So if you're going to play that game, you have to constantly be thinking about not the right now, not the easy fix, not the quick win. It's always the setting up like, if this individual, this fabricator betters himself in a personal perspective, that stone in the pond, how many ripples is that person going to make just by those half an hours, twice a week?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about ripples not only at work, but at home, with family and
Yes.
community, with neighbors, at businesses they frequent, with their friends, and just an infinite amount of ripples, which is what we all hopefully want to see.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. There are parallels between personal recovery and organizational ownership. What have you learned from your own recovery that has shaped Tandem's culture of shared responsibility?
So, in the rooms of recovery, you have people that are coming together and they're rallying around a common cause and they're willing to sacrifice their own selfishness and self centeredness for the benefit of the greater good of the whole. And Tandem's whole mission is shared success. We offer
Mm,
pathways for business success through profit sharing and direct employee ownership that lead to shared prosperity and stronger communities. I don't get credit for coming up with our mission. Of course, we have a board of directors. One of those board members, the board chair, is Chip Cargis. So he founded Cargis Systems on the concept of shared success in 1988. The idea that people could come together, share information openly and broadly, strategy, financials, and to the extent that the business was successful, it would be shared broadly and generously amongst everyone who helped generate that. So prior to becoming executive director at Tandem, and what we've done is we are taking that model and implementing it at other businesses so that they can live that out in the ways that they design their programs to do so. But prior to being an executive director, I worked at Cargis Systems as a lead consultant. I was an employee owner there. Employee ownership provided the security that I needed to purchase the home that my wife and I are raising our children in, that I'm doing this interview in right now. So it was deeply meaningful to me. That ripple effect, it rippled in our family, and I want to
yeah.
carry that forward into the other businesses and community. But when I worked at Cargis, teamwork was one of our core values, and you just saw people making decisions for the team that may have been slightly opposed to their own personal interests. And so that idea that, we're working towards a higher common cause beyond ourselves and our self-interest is what I would say is a similarity between like the rooms of recovery and the ethos of shared success and how that can play out within businesses. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I think that's, when you talk about employee ownership, and I know ESOP's probably the big one, you guys are doing quite a different model here, but along the same lines of like it's all in or it's not in, right? So you have to care about the overall success, like you said, over your own personal gains. And when you think about it, if you put it at the lowest like denominator of that is overtime for overtime's sake for my pocket, or overtime to get a job done for efficiency, for profit for the company, for all of us. It's the simplest argument I could think of is really around that, where people sometimes just work the OT to work the OT for their own bank account versus the OT to get a job out, to make a customer happy, to hit a deadline, to do all of that, which is what we're talking about here. It's for the greater good all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And, service to others isn't just teammates and employee ownership for each other. It's also your customers, right?
Yeah.
So, it's also your vendors and it's also the community. So just, having that mindset of shared success emanates throughout an organization and employees become empowered to make decisions to attend the book club and potentially work a little bit extra so that they could do both if they need to, or be more efficient in less time. And just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can every company do this?
Can every company do what exactly?
The structure you're talking about.
So I'd say shared success is an ethos. We haven't gotten into the specific structure that Tandem is offering. So
Right.
please probe further.
Yeah. So the philosophy of what is, I'm sure, let me ask this a different way. I'm sure the interview process that you all do towards a customer is very important, just as much as a customer finding you guys and asking you questions about what you can provide for a solution for what they're looking for. Because I'm sure a culture piece is a big monster of this to be successful.
Culture. Yeah. So you're delving into the culture piece. And I would say open and transparent, willing to share information with everybody. Um, you need top leaders and owners willing to share information as well as share income and share opportunity for people to become owners. I think sometimes that can be a little scary.
Sure.
It feels like a letting go of control when we meet with owners, but it's actually very incremental, so there's no shocks to the system. So instead of this, it's this.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. And actually, Chip Cargus pulled this off, and he's one of the most joyful business owners I've ever met. You know, just that inside out joy, right? The things that I look for in this new life I've been given. And I want to see all owners experience that. I want to see all people experience life to the fullest. So this isn't an us and them thing. It's like an all of us. Like we're all going to do well as a result.
It's a win-win-win. Yeah. It's so interesting because I remember when I came over, and as you know, I'm a big KPI data insight person. And when I started talking about some of the reports I wanted to put together and share, people are like, "What? What are we doing?" I was like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, we have all this beautiful data and we run projects so well. Why would we want to share all that?" And I remember the other side of the argument was, when I work, I don't want to know. I just work as hard as I can. And that's my day. And I said, I get that. And some people, though, what measured gets done. And I think performance, like a little bit of pressure, right, goes a long way in knowing where you're at and how to scale that. And I remember those initial arguments. I could not wrap my head around that there is a world out there where people are not transparent with data. They don't want to show things. They don't want to track things. They don't want to measure things. And that was a very different view for me. But it's more common, I think, than people realize, or maybe not what people realize. At least that what I realized.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, are you going to operate from a place of trust or a place of fear? There's a lot of fear in sharing bad news with employees. There's fear that if employees hear, the times are tough, they might start looking for other jobs, and you're going to compound the bad news by doing so. But what we found is that, the more that you operate from a place of trust, the more you're going to breed additional trust within the organization. And you're educating employees on the long view. I mean, if you're looking at quarter to quarter, every business that ever existed has bad news and bad quarters. And when you're giving people a stake in the long-term outcome through direct employee ownership and you're educating them along the way, you're really empowering people to think and act like an owner, and play the long game. So, and then to your other point, you mentioned some people, they don't want to know all the information. They just want to come in and weld and then clock out and go home, right? And that's fine, right? All people are different. Humans are the most complex organism that you'll ever find. Good luck trying to, create a system and design to understand the human mind and heart. So at Tandem, we have an approach. So what you're talking about essentially is open book management. What information do you share, how and when, and to whom, right? And we have an approach where, you're sharing information, you're communicating verbally, you're communicating in writing regularly, and then you're sharing in such a way that the people that want to dig into the details can dig further into the details, and the people that don't can ignore it and go on their merry way. And like I'm an information hog, probably like you. And so I would dig into as much detail as I possibly can because I think more information in here, the better I'm able to operate out here.
Yeah, I really love that. You are correct. There is a group of people who want more, more, more. There's a group of people who say, I trust you. And there's a group of people who say, I don't really care. I'm just here for a paycheck, right? And you get all kinds. But that's why it's a living, breathing organism. The people who don't care may care in the future. The people who do care may not care because they go long enough to see the numbers long enough that they start trusting you. No, it's constant evolution too, which makes it difficult. Yeah, that's well said. Love that. Tandem Center champions the direct employee ownership model. What's one belief about employee ownership that surprises people, and why does it really work?
I think with direct employee ownership, it's unique in that it offers an incremental transition of ownership from one generation to the next, which works for both generations and can continue on in perpetuity throughout generations. So, there's four main forms of employee ownership across the United States. You have, if I were to go to a room, right? I saw you at an excellence exchange and you did a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
I appreciated everything that you had to share.
Thanks.
But if I were to go to a room like that and say employee ownership, 90% of the brains would think ESOP immediately. And that makes complete sense because it's been around since the 1970s, the employee stock ownership plan. It's the most common form of employee ownership. There's about almost 6,000 across the United States. And, typically it's a big event and owners selling all at once to an ESOP, and employees are earning shares in the ESOP over time. So for the employee, it really feels like a retirement plan because it is. It's like a 401k. Direct employee ownership, an owner can sell shares back to the business incrementally and receive cash over time. And employees can buy in usually through deductions to a stock savings account, profit sharing or bonus. They can roll that into ownership or out of pocket within limitations. And so you have employees that are able to buy in. You have owners that are nearing retirement that are able to sell. And they can let go incrementally over time. So the concept is there's no shocks to the system. This is a long play and a long process. When I talk to owners and I share that concept, it's a new idea and they're interested because the idea that they could incrementally sell and diversify their net worth over time is really interesting to owners. So,
Is there something that surprises people when you talk to them? Is it just about the longevity and not shocking the system?
Surprises people when you talk to them. What do you mean?
Like do you run into a similar thing where people go, really? When you have conversations about this model that is a connection between multiple different people that you've talked to? Does that come up a lot or not really?
Again, the direct model, that incremental transition, the flexible approach, and the surprises, most owners think ESOP, and when they realize there's another way to do employee ownership, they want to explore further because it's a new idea. It's an idea whose time has come.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Love that. It's a great way to put that. On your website, you talk about business morphing into employee-owned entities with shared business success. Can you share a story of a company that took that leap and what changed afterward? You don't have to get into specifics, but any story or anything you've been through, maybe with a customer that was awesome at the end of it. That really worked. It hit what they needed.
So Tandem was formed in November of 2023, and I was a third generation employee owner from Cargis on our board of directors. One of our major first orders of business was to hire an executive director. Being that employee ownership had such a meaningful impact on mine and my family's life and my prior history and work experience, I thought, well, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to make a difference in the world. So I'm going to apply. I was hired in May of 2024. So last month will be 1 year leading Tandem as executive director. So we currently have 7 clients that are actively in transition, and we're a couple months out from a client implementing direct employee ownership and employees experiencing the benefits. So just to give you a sense of kind of where we're at organizationally, we also recently hired a director of client services who starts on July 14th. And so they're going to manage a caseload to walk businesses through that transition.
Beautiful.
We've got Lauren Rogers, who's the executive director of the National Center of Employee Ownership, on our board of directors. And they're the thought leader in the country around employee ownership models. And he is on the board because they see that this model is ripe for adoption and can greatly increase the number of employee-owned companies in the U.S. So I say all that to say is we have an idea whose time has come and the resources to bring it to fruition, and we're doing that. But to answer your question directly, do I have a story of a client? And we're a nonprofit organization, so we would say client, that, I could share stories along our 5-phase process of clients and big wins along that process, but not the full
Yeah.
implementation. And so a lot of what we'll refer back to is our experience at Cargus as a direct employee-owned company and how that has had impact. So,
No, that's beautifully said. What are you guys seeing as a typical duration to get through those 5 stages?
so we've got 5 phases: explore, evaluate, design, implement, enhance. So the explore phase, we're sitting down, meeting with owners and leadership teams, kind of laying out our programs, trying to understand what their goals and what their desires are. Is there a fit? Are they interested? Usually they have a lot of questions around this specific model because it's a new idea. Most owners and leaders haven't heard about this as an option. And then I was on a call today, and can you hear the rain, by the way?
No, but it's raining outside my house like crazy right now too.
Thunderstorming. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to put the headset on if it was causing a
No,
distraction.
no, I don't hear it at all.
Anyways, I digress. I was on a call today with a business. They're medical physicists. They go, think of like the Ann Barshinger Cancer Institute. They have like
Yeah.
proton therapy, these huge
Wow.
machines. These guys and gals go out and do the physics work on these machines.
Wow.
I can't even speak intelligently about it, but we just finished up an explore phase, and they're interested in taking the next step. So what that would look like is we have an evaluate project, which is typically 1 to 2 months, but it really depends on the mind share and capacity of the owners and the leaders, the key players of the business that we're working with. And that's where we're collecting, organizational chart, uh, governance documents, financials, handbook, trying to learn more about the culture, really trying to learn about kind of the timeline of the owners and the leaders and succession, and putting that all together and into a game plan document, collaborating on that with these leaders. They're giving feedback and helping kind of co-create that to lay out a path forward. And that's just a small project, 1 to 2 months. I have had clients who've delayed that because there's a fire in the business and they just don't have the mind share they just need to postpone for a couple months. And then if they decide to move forward with design or implement with Tandem, so that would be that they're interested in the employee engagement pieces, which include open book management, collaboration, and celebration, or the profit sharing plan, or direct employee ownership, which includes an employee stock purchase plan, could include a stock bonus, stock grant, or stock donation program. So think of this as like a menu or a suite of different programs and practices that businesses can implement and design per their unique requirements. So if they choose to move forward with any of those, they go into design and implement, which could be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, really depending upon how quickly they want to roll those out, how much mind share and how much capacity they have to go through that process. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. All right, quick timeout from the BS to talk about someone who actually helped me sort mine out. BS. I don't know if I can sort all of that out since it's part of my name. If your business is facing a real change and clarity feels like trying to read a map in the dark, you need to speak to my friend Scott Hackman and his team at SHV Partners. Scott doesn't just consult, he shows up, he asks bold questions, and somehow makes your whole team feel 2 inches taller just by being in the room. Scott's a pretty tall person, just a heads up. There's no buzzwords, no fluffy strategy decks, just real conversation, uncomfortable truths, and progress that actually sticks. So some consultants come in, it's all about proving your worth, circle backs, buzzwords, a lot of fluff, no real action. That's not what Scott does, and that's not what Scott's team does, which is amazing. So I've worked with him. He's the real deal. So hit up shvpartners.com or find Scott Hackman on LinkedIn. The links are also in the show notes below. But once again, what do I know? I'm just a gamer. Do you, how do I ask this politely? Are you guys a direct competition for PE firms, or are you an added outlet for them?
Private equity.
Mm-hmm.
When I consider exit strategies for business owners, I think of a spectrum, and you have gifts to a family member way down here on this end of the spectrum. You have sale to a family member. Then, you have management buyout, and then you have employee ownership, and then you have strategic sale, private equity sale, and initial public offering. And then on that spectrum, you have these factors. And so cash being the top factor. So gift to family, the cash factor is little. Sale to private equity, the cash factor is big. Other factors to consider are sharing rewards with management and employees, culture, legacy, and those are typically inversely related, right? So the greater the cash, the more impact you're going to see on things like culture and legacy. So I would say that direct employee ownership is a different approach where you may not receive a big payout at a given point in time. However, you're maintaining the culture and the legacy, and you're continuing to provide jobs and meaning for the people that helped generate.
Yep.
And furthermore, if you do the incremental sale of ownership to the company and you roll this out well, those employees and managers are going to drive the growth and success of the business. And you're actually going to share in that growth over the long term. And Chip will tell you that he had offers decades ago that he could have taken, but he actually received a greater reward, even financially, by declining and implementing direct employee ownership. So it's back to the infinite game. It's like there's what I want right now, or kind of the potential long-term payoff of the long view.
I think you all are going to be walking into a gigantic market because of, I think, the generation that will be looking to retire that are probably business owners. And are there enough people to pick up those mantles?
I am extremely encouraged. If I walk into a room full of people, so I walked into a room of 29 business owners, and I was on a panel with a wealth advisor, a merger and acquisition firm, a banker, and a fractional CEO firm. And it was all very, traditional exit strategies. And then I come in swinging with this like new idea, crazy countercultural idea, and you see heads go like this. And, 4 of the 29 business owners came up and said, I want to learn more about that.
That's beautiful.
I like that. I'm attracted to that. There's something attractive to it. It's a little countercultural to what, the common knowledge has been to date. So yeah, I'm feeling confident that there is a huge market, and our early results are proving that to be the case.
That's amazing. That's really exciting. How do you define and measure shared success? Like what would be your definition of that, and what metrics what metrics would you put in that? Like obviously with the shared success, and you mentioned an incentive plan that would have KPIs and things like that. I'm sure inside of your execution or your discovery or part of your stages, the KPIs and metrics would come into that.
Yeah, I would define shared success. First I'll look at it from a tandem mission perspective, right? So number of new employee owners, number of new employee profit sharing, number of businesses that we've helped along the path to shared success. But beyond that, to boil it down into metrics, it's like employee recruiting and retention, employee engagement, profit, growth, productivity, um, NPS, right? Customer care, innovation. You
Mm.
know, I think the largest untapped resources in every organization is the human potential of your frontline employee. If you can engage those people that are serving the customers or building the products to think and act like an owner and feel empowered to come to the CEO and say, I think we should do this or that. I think some of the best ideas that companies will generate will come from that. And so when you share success and you're educating and empowering and people have a little bit of ownership, a little slice of the pie, they're going to generate those ideas and that productivity to drive the growth and success of the business. So,
Oh man, you're going down a path that I'm super passionate about. So I want to ask you a couple questions because I have some crazy ideas around innovation.
yes, let's go. Crazy idea.
So innovation philosophy, which has been in my head for a long, long time. I love the word engagement. It's like my word of 24 and 25. One, because like I want to keep improving our safety statistics and our safety culture and our quality. And I think all of that stuff that comes down to engaged employees. I think that the health of a company comes down to engaged employees, period. Like that word could solve the world's problems. So when we're talking innovation, do you think you can tell somebody today your task is to go innovate? That's what I want you to do. Do you think that's possible? Is that an actual task for employees?
I've never thought of the question as deeply as I just did there for about 5 seconds. And I'm just going to shoot from the hip and say
Yes.
no. Like, that's my answer.
Okay. I agree. I'm in the same headspace, Drew. And I want to walk through this with you because I would appreciate your feedback on this because this isn't something I really talked about too much. But I think innovation's so interesting because it's the non-tangible thing that everybody wants, but it's really hard to get. And I think it's really hard to get because to me, the innovation in my head is an equation. And I think you need diversity of thought and I think you need inclusivity. Both of those, I think, get you natural engagement and natural innovation because one, you have a group of people who all don't think the same and they're inclusive enough to say your ideas, they're not saying your idea is stupid. We're all throwing shit at the wall and hopefully, and we're mixing it all up and it comes out to some beautiful idea because we have really smart people in the shop and in the field in the office. And I try to tell them that all the time because you are right. The problems they're solving that don't even get recognized is your efficiency and your productivity and things getting done every day. That if people are annoyed or don't like working there or whatever else could stop and say, this isn't my problem. I'm going to go find somebody to fix it for me.
Yeah. Innovation happens on a micro scale and a macro scale. So the
Ooh.
micro scale, if you create companies where employees are engaged and empowered, they're going to innovate in their day-to-day job every single day. I mean, I was a ERP system implementer. I followed like the instruction manuals of software that I implemented, you know, and
Yeah.
I read through them and I knew them front to back. Well, that I'm probably being boastful, but I knew them well.
Mhm.
And when I would work with clients, I would come up with different ways to do things that were more efficient. And on our team at Cargus, I could share that and people would say, wow, that's really good, you know? And so that's the micro scale. Innovation on the macro scale, I think you can have like a time and a place and a platform for sharing big ideas and you can give them weight and help people
Mm.
kind of have a vote on whether you should explore them further. But you know, having the opportunity for employees to raise their hand and disagree in a room full of people and be able to collaborate. You know, I don't like it if you're coming up with a new market or a new strategy and giving, you know, everybody an opportunity to add feedback. And of course, you're not going to be able to take everyone's ideas,
Nope.
but little bits that you can incorporate. And ultimately, you know, you as CEO are going to have kind of final say if push comes to shove. But the more that you can let everybody's voice be heard, incorporate different ideas and come up with the right approach and make a decision, you may have spent that time on the front end, that extra time, and but the implementation and the rollout beyond that will be much smoother because people had an opportunity to be a part of that process.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I don't know if you ever, I don't know if you're an SNL fan, but there was a Peacock special around SNL and the process of prepping for Saturday night. And what was really fascinating to me was exactly what you just said. They all get in a room, they come up with ridiculous ideas for skits, right? And a little piece over here, a little piece over there, a little piece over that, like looks nothing like the final skit on Saturday. But it was all those little tiny bits that they all needed to come up with something that was really funny to fit. And they were kind of bouncing off each other, and having that openness for nothing to be off the table was what that took, and that openness and willingness to be really silly and creative. And I just think businesses could learn a lot from that.
And I would say, being an employee owner, for me, it was like, I'm an owner here, right? This is our company. So there's an empowering aspect just to the sheer fact of, I have stock shares in the company that I work for. This is our company. And it fosters that willingness to lob ideas out there. Yeah. And I love SNL. What is it? Season or 50? What are we? 50th anniversary?
Yeah, I think we just had it this year, I think earlier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. But yeah, and I love comedy, and I think that there's something really natural about that whole process. And it seems like a lot of really successful comedy spaces do something very similar in the creative space. So
I want to put you on the spot. Who's your favorite comedians, current comedians right now out on the scene?
Theo, I could
Theo
listen to
Vaughn?
I could listen to him all day. Um, like he is the epitome of a
I love
storyteller.
Theo. Listen, I love Theo Vaughn because he's got the recovery thing. It's like
Mm.
he brings that in all the time. Speaking of which, he had Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe on at one point, and they talked employee ownership for like 20 minutes. I sent
Did
that
they?
to the NCEO. I was like, you got to check this out. But yeah, I just think he's funny.
Yeah, and they talk about marketing, and they talk about, like, I think one of the reasons Theo blew up so quickly is because he's probably one of the best storytellers that's ever existed, because he literally has a story for everything. And some of them are so unbelievable. And his memory, if half of these things are true, his memory has got to be one of the best of all time, because he can remember the crazy details of a story that just blow your mind. I can't believe some of the stuff actually happened.
Yeah, he makes me laugh, you know,
Yes. Deep
like
laugh. Yeah.
to actually laugh. Everybody needs to laugh. We
Yeah.
all need to lighten up and laugh a bit. And he really makes me laugh. I mean, he went over to the Middle East and was talking to troops or something. And like a week before, he got into a fight at a bar or something. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they sent me over to solve peace in the Middle East. And I just got in a fight in a bar. It's funny stuff.
Yeah, and the other one I would say I'm not big on is probably like his whole comedy routine, but I have a huge newfound respect for Cat Williams after he did his Joe Rogan pod, and then he was on Theo, and like his what was fascinating to me when he was on Joe Rogan was his word usage and choice of words he thought about very, very specifically. And you could watch him take his time, realize the setting he was in, realizing millions of people would be listening, and then choosing his words very wisely about the controversial stuff that they were talking about. And it was so fascinating to watch someone process through that in live time. I love that. I love people who can really take that time to appreciate that kind of stuff.
Well, now I'm scared because I thought about what I just said for Theo, and I don't think I really thought it through and processed it. I got a little too comfortable here.
I told you 2 minutes in, I'm doing my job, Drew, if you forgot. Brilliant. What's the number one resistance you run into with your guys' approach? What are people scared of?
The misconception that they're letting go of control.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Think about it this way. If you're incrementally transitioning ownership, you're an S corp or C corp, you have, the majority of ownership. You're not letting go of control. You're giving other people an opportunity. You're raising up the next generation of leaders and owners. And actually, you're putting the decision on them. Not everybody's going to decide to be an owner. And the ones that do, they're kind of showing you like who wants to be there and like who could be your next generation of leaders and top talent. So it's just a win-win.
Isn't it just the ultimate investment in your own people who want to get in the
Ultimate
boat?
investment in your own people, your company, your legacy, and just continuing, to take the long view. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Very well said. So, What tools or practices from your sobriety toolkit do you still rely on as your current role?
You know, become an executive director of tandem with the board of directors that we have with Chip Cargis, who's been wildly successful for what he's pulled off at Cargis Systems, with an idea whose tongue and the resources to bring it to fruition. I bit off more than I realized I was going to need to chew, if
Mm.
I'm being quite honest. And that's good. I learned that in recovery is like to be willing and to say yes and to suit up and show up and then figure it out when you get there. And it's like you kind of step out on the deep waters and there's a lot of uncomfortability when you're out there and you're kind of trying to figure it out. I like the quote, get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's absolutely a must. So the tools that I use is like, every morning is vitally important. Getting up early before my kids get up, before my wife gets up, spending time, quiet time, time in prayer and meditation, journaling, taking inventory of the day
Mm.
prior and looking ahead at the day ahead and just envisioning, how can I be other centered and look to serve in every situation that I go into. Those are all tools that I learned. That's a daily practice that I learned in the rooms of recovery, and it just universally applies in life. And if I apply it to this role as executive director at Tandem and the work that, our mission, then it's just a recipe for success to continue to practice that daily.
So I love that you said that you bit off more than you can chew because I felt the exact same way when I stepped into this role over at SWF.
How long ago was that, Brandon?
I had my 7-year anniversary 5 days ago.
Congrats.
Thanks, man. Um, and if I would have actually thought it out, probably much like you think, I probably would have never done it, right? And I think about that moment of like, what if things didn't really work out great? Like we're talking about a person's, my father-in-law's legacy that was on the line that like, if I would have thought about that, I would have been terrified and probably ran the other direction. So whenever I talk to people and they're worried about that next step, when I think back to that time, I always tell myself, like, if you're completely ready and comfortable, it's probably something you should have done a long time ago, right? Like that flex is, I think, is important to figure out like what you can do and what you can do. But we all talk about, I love your quote, and we all talk about being uncomfortable. And we should try things that are scary and all that kind of stuff. But I don't want people losing the thought that when you're in it, it still sucks. Like that uncomfortableness still really sucks. So don't forget that you are supposed to do that. That does mean you're stretching, but in the middle of it, it will be hard and you are going to have to lace your boots up and get really in the weeds about stuff that makes you scared. And that's all part of the process.
Right on. Yep. We're living in it.
No doubt. I mean, the podcast was that for me. I didn't know. I didn't know what I was going to do or what it was. It was all very new. I did a small one before, but it didn't really go anywhere with anything. But it's like, like if you push through, you trudge through, you keep consistent, you do your routines and all that kind of stuff, I think just makes a huge difference on, what does it look like on the backs, 70 episodes later, here we are.
And my life has been a series of decisions like that, right? Just
Mm.
like making a crazy leap of faith and ending up in deep waters and then being really uncomfortable for a long time and then getting comfortable and being like, wow, this is awesome. Life is great. And then getting a little bored and being like, all right, what's the next crazy idea? And then doing that. And, that's how we have 4 children, and the oldest is 7 years old. So.
Yeah. No, totally. I totally hear you. I get it's so interesting to say it that way because it's the boredom that catches up with you and you go, okay, well, I've mastered this. So what's next? So
Lately,
funny.
we built a fence in our backyard this weekend, like a wood fence, and even that stuff, just getting your hands on things and trying to figure it out, and yeah, just life is about continuing to discover things along the way.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, Drew, but I'm extremely mechanically deficient. And now with ChatGPT on my phone and being able to take pictures of what I want to do and explaining to it, it tells me step by step, like how to do it, what tools to use, size of things, what types of all. So like now I'm gaining this weird confidence to be like, like for instance, I hung lightsabers in my basement and it spaced them out perfectly. Like if I wouldn't have had chat to tell me exactly how to do that, it would have not been able to do it. And it came out perfect. And I was so happy. I was like, I can take on the world, Drew. I can do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember hanging a flat screen in our basement, and after it was up, I was like, wow, look at that work.
Look at me now. And I go out into the shop and they were building silos from everything. And I'm like, you people are incredible. Simply incredible.
Lightsabers. You a
Yeah,
big
I'm a
Star
nerd.
Wars guy?
Huge. Yeah, my wife and I both are.
We watched them. I've watched them with my boys. I probably shouldn't have watched the end of episode 3 with them, but I
Oh,
did. And afterwards was like, whoops. And
yeah,
then
we love
Dana
them
was like,
all.
what are you watching? I'm like, I didn't know.
It just happened. Yeah, big fan of that. Big fan of Star Wars. Love Legos, all the nerdy stuff. How does focusing on the human side rather than just profits transform the day-to-day operations and long-term vision for a business? So people talk about culture. It's thrown around all the time. It's big in business, but I'm not sure everybody actually believes in this non-tangible mythical beast that is culture.
Yeah. I always think of the quote about integrity, right? What are you doing when no one's looking?
Mm.
And then culture, I'm equating to what are the employees saying at the water cooler when the managers and the bosses aren't looking, right? Just to me, it boils down to care for other people. Just a deep care to want to see everybody succeed and be the best version of who they can be. I think that starts at the top. The leaders got to really, really care about everybody who's under their care, right? You've been entrusted with this organization, and that organization is made up of people. And yeah, you're a business and you're generating profits and creating products and services. But your most valuable resources are the human beings that have been entrusted to your care. And so people can feel that.
Totally
You know?
agree. Totally agree. I think it's the way I always put it to business owners when I'm talking to them about that is it's the competitive advantage that your competitors can't go buy off the shelf. You can hire all kinds of advocates and advisors and all these different people to help your culture. I'm not sure it can be fixed unless your leadership's on board. You do the things day to day. How do you treat people in meetings? How do you treat people when things go wrong? What is your 5 whys process? How do you get to the root cause of things? How do you solve things for the future instead of blame? Like all that stuff has to happen all the time. It's hard and there's probably no end goal, right? You never reach the finish line for culture, for safety, these things that just continuously improve all the time.
Can you make admission when you mess up, right? You talked about skills from recovery that translate into the workplace. It's, whenever I mess something up, promptly admitting it, taking ownership, and then making it right, and vowing to do better the next time. Can the leader do that?
Insecurity. Yeah, that's a tough one.
So
It's brilliant. But if the leadership's not doing it, then no one else is going to do it either, right?
got us pondering here.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm pretty sure we got through all my questions, and we're at 58 minutes. We almost nailed it, Drew.
Nice.
So I
I hope
do want
everybody
to.
enjoys this. I mean, it's like came into here expecting the unexpected, that Brandon was going to ask questions that I wasn't sure where they were going to lead, and here we are.
No, it's one. I love the topic because, like you said, most people don't know the options are out there. And I think one of the scariest things entrepreneurs, founders, owners go through is coming to the end of the line with no succession for the business. And you guys have cracked that code in a different format.
Right. A slow, incremental succession, which works for both generations. And mind you, this can work for young owners that are entrepreneurial. So back to that physics,
Yep.
they are going to be there for decades probably, but they just want to include everybody in the growth, and they see it as a competitive advantage.
Of course.
they're going against the stream. They're going to be able to, they've seen private equity buy up similar businesses and have had bad experiences with that. Now, I'm not saying that that happens all the time, but in
Nope.
their own words, that's what and um, they see that this is going to attract the best people and that they're going to be the best company doing what they do out there as a result.
That's amazing. Drew, if people go, this sounds amazing, how can they find you? How can they find Tandem? Where should they go? What's the best way to get a hold of y'all?
Tandemcenter.org. TADEMCENTER.org. Click connect, fill out the form. That'll come to me directly. Or they can email me directly. dmousetis@tandemcenter.org.
Mousetis.
Yes, like mouse tis.
Love it. And LinkedIn. You're pretty active on LinkedIn as well.
I'm getting there, you know.
You are. I love seeing you at the conventions or the whatever stupid stuff I get myself into. It was very helpful. And you come right up. You're completely opposite of me. I'm the one that is at those things that I don't know who to talk to. I'm usually in the corner looking at my phone, trying to not disturb anyone. But thank you for always coming up and being kind.
That's a recovery skill right there. You're taught to go in and shake hands and introduce yourself to people and, you know, find the people that, you know, meet as many people as you can and find the people that you can help or that can help you and just continue to find those people in the rooms. So yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on, Drew. This was amazing. Almost nailed 1 hour exactly. You were right on target.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. I can't wait to watch you and continue to bump into you in public. And thanks everybody for listening if you made it this far.
They did. I'm sure they will. And yeah, so I mean, experience wise, I know we had a couple conversations leading up to this. How do you feel
about the podcast?
Yeah.
Excellent. Good. Yeah, you're a wonderful host. You did a great job. I feel comfortable. It was a nice balance between personal and professional. And, you know, coming in, I was a little weary, I guess, of sharing some of the personal stuff. But I think it's important that the business community know the real me. And so where I come from, why I am the way that I am, and why I'm excited to carry forward the mission of Tandem.
Your story could help a lot of people. So I appreciate you doing that and being open and honest.
Yep. And if anybody needs help with any of those issues, they can reach out to me for that as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will catch you on the next one.